it just needs that hormone support. And that's why it's such a big symptom when you go through menopause. Like, what was I doing? Walk into a room and forget why. Don't feel like your brain is braining anymore.
I hear two women will say, well, I don't want to start HRT because then I'm going to be dependent upon it. And we're like, did it ever occur to you that prior to menopause, you were also dependent every single day of your life on your hormones? This isn't about a dependency, and it's not even about big pharma, because in the early 1900s, before big pharma, in quotes, existed, hormone replacement therapy was recognized as a first-line defense for the chronic diseases of aging for all women.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Dr. Lowe Show. These ladies have been very sought after for me, and they have actually been a beautiful influence on me personally and also with my patients. They have written an amazing book. We'll talk all about it. I wanted to introduce my guests. If you're familiar with Wise and Well, then you know these ladies. They have an amazing social media presence, and what I love about them is they just give it to you straight. They don't, I love it. They don't hold back. If there's any, myths or misconceptions that come along their way, they set it straight, and they just are straight shooters, and it's a very refreshing approach, I find. So I just appreciate that about both of you ladies. But a little bit more about my guests for you guys listening. We have Kristin Johnson and Maria Claps. They're the co-founders of the women's health and hormone education practice Wise and Well. You can check them out at wise_and_well_. We'll make sure to put the link in the show notes for you guys. Kristin Johnson, she's board certified in holistic nutrition through the National Association of Nutrition Professionals. She's a functional nutritional therapy practitioner through Nutritional Therapy Association and is a recovering corporate attorney. I love it. Hence the straight shooter, the fire.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I don't think I knew that. Maria Claps is a certified health coach through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And together they have this really beautiful dynamic duo. They developed a deep specialty in perimenopause and menopausal health through their clinical mentorship with multiple medical doctors and naturopathic doctors specializing in hormone replacement therapy. They've also completed advanced training in various functional testing modalities, and we'll get more into all of that. And they just do some beautiful training for practitioners, for women who just want to get healthier and get their hormones balanced out. So it's a beautiful thing you two have created. And thank you for your generosity coming on the show, and welcome to the show.
Pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Now you're in Chicago and Delaware. I'm in San Diego, so we're covering the whole US here.
Yeah.
And one thing I love about you two is you prioritize your own wellness. Like, you seem to have just beautiful boundaries around it, and you do traveling and everything. Did you guys go on any recent trips?
Yeah.
We just got back from Jackson Hole, Wyoming on Sunday. So yeah, we had a great retreat out there. We were in Scottsdale before that, and we both got some personal travel coming up and some family events and things. So yeah.
Okay. And you also have gone like to Mexico, I think, or Europe,
I have,
right?
several times.
Yeah. She flees this winter. I'm not a winter baby, so I don't flee it.
I flee it for just a short period.
Yeah. Get your fix and you're out of there. I'm the same way. So why are you two into this area of medicine, of your career? Like, did you both kind of have your own reasons health-wise, or what got you into it?
Yeah, I mean, I just think women start to see like their health and their mood and just a lot of changes when they kind of hit probably like early mid 40s type of a thing. And you either, I guess, stick your head in the sand, or you like, okay, what's happening? You get curious about your body and you learn. And that's actually what we both did. We just got curious.
Yeah. I mean, I think Maria and I read this somewhere and we're like, this makes so much sense. They're starting to coin the beginnings of perimenopause as the NFLM, not feeling like myself. And I think, we both felt that, but, not to age ourselves, that was well over 10 years ago. And there was not this discussion and this awareness and everything else around it. So we were really sort of left adrift. And, I think our mother's generation either didn't talk about it that much because they kind of were just thought, well, it's something you suffer through. And our moms had different experiences. My mom had surgical menopause at 32. And that was on the operating table of my birth. So my entire life, I had a postmenopausal mom.
Wow.
And so I didn't witness her go through anything, right? And so because our moms handled it very quietly, neither Maria and I never had a benchmark for what to expect. And so we're just not two people who kind of sit down and have things happen to us. We're very much sort of like take action. And that's pretty much what our business is built off of, is really like get educated so you have agency and take action. And that's what we both did.
Yes, and it's working. It's definitely working. I can't tell you how many times I've sent patients over to your Instagram,
Oh,
or I've assigned your book to them for reading.
Thank you.
I love it.
Because I'm a huge fan of physiological restoration and hormone therapy, and it's a whole new world over the last year that I've really been diving into, and your book is a really great resource beyond anything, hormone replacement related, just in general, of how to navigate these years of your life and how they're changing, because they're majorly changing. And I can say now at 44, and I am 4 months pregnant, so it's a whole different world for me. But to rewind back when I first graduated and became a naturopathic doctor in my early 30s, when I would talk to women in this stage of life, I would try to have empathy, but I really didn't know what they were dealing with, even as a
Right.
woman. And it
Yep.
wasn't until I hit 40 that I was like, oh, and, sleep started to change, anxiety got worse. I just truly felt like, who the heck is this person? I would look back at pictures and be like, oh my gosh, I looked so vibrant and juicy and luscious, and I didn't even realize it at the time. I didn't realize how good I felt. And
Yeah.
it just really started to change. And I think it helped me to be a better doctor, because I could really empathize with patients of what it
Sure.
feels like to go through it. And I think that women going through perimenopause are the most underserved population. And, us ladies in this stage used to be completely in the dark. Now we're sort of in the shadows with some light starting to, emerge and give us some education and some hope. But, you guys are both really changing the game in this way. So that's why I just shout you from the mountaintops. But, a lot on this topic we could dive into. Let's kind of dive into, what would maybe be some, and we talked a little bit about this on the show, but for the ladies listening who are like, I don't know, I mean, maybe I'm going through some changes hormonally. I'm not totally sure. My doctor just wants to put me on, antidepressants, or maybe some sleep medication or something like that. They don't want to check my hormones because I'm not menopausal. I mean, there's so many women who are in that camp. So let's give them some clues of maybe what they could be looking for personally, symptom-wise.
Anxiety, so changing periods, um, vaginal dryness can happen actually in early peri. Um,
The not feeling like yourself, right? Kind of feeling like you really, I mean, I don't mean to disparage the younger ladies, but you kind of go through your 20s trying to figure out who you are. And then you get to your 30s and you kind of feel like you're whatever. And then you hit 40 and you're like, I've arrived, right?
Yeah.
And then boom, life comes, hormonal changes come, and you literally start to question everything. Like, am I a good mom? Am I a good partner? Do I want to continue my career? Like, what is going on? And that, even if you don't have, like Maria and I didn't have hot flashes.
Right.
Looking back, my biggest one was probably sleep loss and vaginal dryness, libido change. But I was also, parenting while being an adult to my needy, my aging parents. I was ending a career. I had moved across the country. I was working out and training in a sport that was incredibly difficult. I was pushing myself hard. And I think unfortunately that's what a lot of women at this age, they have a difficult time decoupling. Is it my lifestyle foundations? Is it this kind of go, go, go hustle culture, or, keeping up with life? Or is it my hormones? And there's, a resistance to aging, right? So there's a reluctance to recognize it as the hormonal changes of aging. And so then the ladies start doubling down on these lifestyle foundations with the changing body composition and everything else. And that's why I think it's hard for women. But Maria and I also look at it as like everyone's going to experience it differently. It's impossible to give a list and say these are your signs, because they might not be your signs,
Right.
you know?
Exactly. It's just a collection of signs, take
Yeah.
your pick which ones are specific to you. And I
Yeah.
totally agree. I mean, there is this resistance to getting older, especially with so many of us ladies waiting to have kids until later. I know for
Mhm.
myself in my mid 30s, I started to feel symptoms of more anxiety and sleep issues, but I hadn't had a child yet. And so, doing my own research, I'm like, is this early includes a peri. And I was like, no, it's not, because I haven't had a child yet. So I'm not
Don't
going to
put me in
embrace
that box.
that.
Yeah.
But the fact is I had two children. I mean, I'm pregnant with my second, but in kind of this early peri. So it doesn't mean you can't get pregnant in perimenopause. And I think
Right.
that's a big
Yeah.
concern
You're
for a
proof
lot of.
positive of that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yes, there's this mental part of it. And what women don't realize is perimenopause can be a long period of time, right? It's not
Yeah.
like it's, non-peri and all of a sudden your period stops and now it's like there's
Right.
a
Right.
period of time that happens. So, but typically like 10, even longer years for some women, right?
Sure.
Yeah. It could be what, 3 or 4 too. I mean, it doesn't,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
I think that's the other thing. Now there's this resistance like, oh, I don't want to be in perimenopause because people think they now have this decade of misery in front of them. Well, you'd only be so lucky, honestly, because some women, it comes and it's over and now you're postmenopausal, and
Yeah.
that's harder.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to, because I haven't talked about physiological restoration on the show yet. So I definitely want that to be a focus. And there's a lot that we can talk about with that. So there's obviously the hesitations for some women, like, I don't want to go on hormones. I want to do as low of dose as possible and for as shorter period of time as I can. And, maybe I have a family history of cancer and my doctor scared me about that. So I just want to take just enough so I'm not, in misery through this period of time. So
Or I
what
just
would
want
you
to be
say to those
natural.
ladies? Yeah,
Or I just want to be natural. We get
all
that from
natural.
usually our Southern California ladies all the time.
Yep. I'm
I
gonna do
just want to be
yoga
natural.
and herbs, and that's
And
it.
manifest my way through
And
Perry.
manifest this beautiful period of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maria, can we go through it naturally well?
Well, we can, but it's kind of miserable. See,
Yeah.
the natural gals tend to regret their decision once they hit about 60, early 60s, maybe
Yeah.
63 or so.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Yeah.
see
That's
that.
when the bottom falls out for almost all of them.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we try and make the point in the book because where we think the number one, there's many myths, but what we think the number one sort of misguided information out there to women is that it's about your changing cycle and it's about your changing fertility. That is not, that is like a subplot of what perimenopause and postmenopause years are. What it is you're losing this ovarian signaling that was controlling your health from top to bottom. And this is why it's so different, right? I had a friend who literally her only signs of menopause were tinnitus and burning mouth. That's it, right?
Wow.
What doctor is going to go, oh, it's your hormones? No, they're like, you go to an ENT and then you're going to go, to a neurologist and blah, 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 blah. So what Maria and I are trying to get across to even the natural desiring ladies is that it's not natural to be on a statin at 70, and yet that's all we consider normal now, right? It's not natural to lose your bone density because you didn't lose it when you were 20, 30, and 40. Why are we now losing it at 50, 60, 70? Is it really just aging? And we answer with no. It's not just aging because men are aging and they don't have near the poor health span that we women do, right? So it's really about what is happening in our bodies that's not happening in theirs, which is we have this loss of ovarian hormone production. So once
Mhm.
I think women understand that even a lubrication of your eye is dependent upon sufficient estrogen, then they can decouple from this whole loss of fertility, loss of menstruation thing and go, oh, snap, I actually don't want to age poorly. Therefore, doing it naturally, which is AKA no hormones, not a
Mhm.
good recipe for aging.
Yes, exactly. And it's like if a woman has or a man has type 1 diabetes, herbs aren't going to make their pancreas make insulin, right? It's their
Right,
insulin's just not making it. And at some point your ovaries just stop making these hormones. So,
right.
Vitex or Maca, like none of those things, maybe they help with some symptoms, but it's not going to make those hormones bounce back,
I
period.
mean, I would also like to posit that bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is a natural way to approach menopause, right? There's nothing unnatural about it.
Right, right.
Right.
No one looks at glasses as unnatural, right? It's just a
Exactly.
correction for a deficiency,
Hmm.
but therein is part of the problem. Maria and I rub up against this quite a bit. Is women don't want to be told that their problems are driven by a lack of something because now you're calling them deficient. And how dare you call her deficient, right?
Right.
Or that you're making it a pathology. They don't want to have a pathology. Come on, guys, we got to get past these biases and just recognize that no one's, going to reject insulin if they're diabetic. No one's going to reject glasses correction if they need to drive down the street and they don't have, distance vision. So
Right.
why are we accepting cardiovascular changes due to estrogen loss and saying, I'm okay with that? I don't think they are, right? But they don't understand how this globally presents in the body when they lose their hormone.
Right. It's not just about the inability to not be pregnant anymore, right? It's
Right.
just so much like that was just like, I would say, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, that was the biggest revelation for Kristin and for myself, is that, oh my gosh, like literally your optic nerve has estrogen receptors. Your
Yeah.
colon has estrogen receptors, right? Your
Right.
skin has estrogen receptors. And then like, okay, those receptors are there. They're there for a reason. They need to be supplied with the actual hormone. But I think
Mhm.
another really, really interesting thing is, and I kind of get this because it maybe used to be this way, is, well, it's big pharma and I don't really want any part of that. Yeah, I mean, not really. It's really not. It's not, you cannot compare, 17 beta estradiol to a statin or to a beta blocker. It's just not in the same category. And I just would challenge women to not, you don't look, I get that. I had natural, baby's natural. And, my youngest child to this day, he's 28. He's never had antibiotics in his life. Not that I wouldn't give it to him if he needed it, but he just didn't need it. So I just would really challenge him and like, you can pick and choose
Right.
certain things. You can use them smartly, judiciously. You can be a really smart consumer when it comes to even big pharma. And don't adopt that pose and just, realize that there is a world of great aging and basically, health to you when hormones are part of your healthy aging plan. They don't take care of everything and they can go
Yeah,
sideways, but
exactly. That's a
they're
good point you
incredibly
bring up.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they aren't a
Yeah.
cure-all for everything. They're a huge part and absolutely necessary part of the whole picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my things I love talking about with patients is just that, like you said, you have receptor for estrogen on, all different kinds of organs, really every organ system, your brain. I mean, I treat a lot
Mhm.
of brain conditions, ADHD, and had a patient recently who started with me diagnosed with Alzheimer's. You better believe I got her on some hormones, because
Yeah.
the brain just it just needs that hormone support. And that's why it's such a big symptom when you go through menopause. Like, what was I doing? Walk into a room and forget why. Just don't feel like your brain is braining anymore the way that it used
Yeah.
to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
So,
hear two women will say, well, I don't want to start HRT because then I'm going to be dependent upon it. And we're like, but did it ever occur to you that prior to menopause, you were also dependent every single day of your life on your hormones?
Mm-mm.
that's a
Right?
great
Like
point.
this isn't about a dependency. And as Maria said, it's not even about big pharma because in the early 1900s, before big pharma in quotes existed, hormone replacement therapy was recognized as a first line defense for the chronic diseases of aging for all women. We're talking like 1905. Right?
Right.
There was no big pharma then. We weren't mass producing drugs and making us, a sick care system that put us dependent upon it. So we're kind of
Yeah.
like HRT is the OG
Uh-huh.
to aging well. It just, we had this period of time where it just got kind of muddied. And now, unfortunately, we're in this hangover period where people don't understand it and they don't appreciate it the right way that they should.
100%. I loved a part of your book where you were talking about the history of using HRT and how even 200 BC Chinese practitioners were isolating sex and pituitary hormones from human urine and using them. And 600 CE, we're seeing Sun Samao first administered
Yep.
glandular extractive deer and sheep thyroid. It's amazing. This isn't
Yeah.
a new thing.
No. Yeah, we can't blame it on some commercialized industry that's trying to reap profit off of our health woes. That's
Yeah.
not what this is.
Yeah.
Um, and I think going back to when women understand that A, they were always dependent upon them, that it was actually what kept them ticking and upright and functioning and performing their best their whole life, that leads then easily into that conversation about HRT itself in terms of there's a huge spectrum. This isn't some commercialized, standardized, uniform thing that we take off the shelf and we give to women, right? There's all different types of HRT. And so when women understand what their hormone production and function was, it starts to make sense to find an HRT regimen that replicates that production and function, right?
Right.
And so that easily kind of then gets us into that physiologic restoration discussion.
Exactly. So let's dive into that. I know a lot of women who do hormones or try to, their doctor puts them on birth control. That's oftentimes one thing that's used, or maybe some oral estrogen, just that, or it's kind of messy and it's not always targeted based on any labs or anything. So how would you describe the physiologic restoration? How's that different?
They're mimicking a menstrual cycle. So in a menstrual cycle, there is a peak of estrogen
Well, we
around
say ovarian cycle.
ovarian cycle. Yes,
Yeah.
Kristin
I didn't
likes
want to
that.
freak anyone out over the
Oh,
menstrual.
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
you're mimicking the ovarian hormones. So there's a peak of estradiol, and then there's a really robust peak of progesterone in the second half of the cycle. And so what that does, like that's just it will in a woman with an intact uterus, it will create a withdrawal bleed.
Mhm.
That's not the purpose of it. It's an artifact, but you get genomic stimulation with these peaks of these different hormones. And then that has very beneficial effects throughout the body.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the progesterone's not every day. And this is what
Right.
a lot of women don't realize is that, sure, we had minuscule amounts of progesterone coming out of the adrenal glands in the first half, the follicular phase of our cycle, but really our progesterone production out of the ovaries doesn't ramp up until the second half of the cycle. So again, that goes to the design of your HRT regimen. If we're going to be mimicking the health influences that our hormones gave us when they were produced internally, we would want to design a regimen that mimics their presence and absence in order to get those same genomic signals. So this gets into what the conversation is around cycling progesterone, right? And right now, it's funny, doctors will say, well, standard of care is to give progesterone every single day. And Maria and I dove into the research. It's actually not true. The true Walter Kluwer's uptodate.com, where it gives you the guidance for what is the conventional standard of care, actually says cycling progesterone. But it makes a concession and says, recognizing that some women don't want to bleed and some doctors don't want to manage the bleed, you could give it continuously. But everyone seems to blank and gloss over that and just go right to the continuous delivery of progesterone. That's a problem because what women don't understand is you're going to not get the genomic signals that enter and absence of progesterone was giving you. And there's no guarantee that you're not going to bleed.
Right.
Right.
I think it was 40% of the women randomized in the Women's Health Initiative to the continuous progesterone arm had to be disqualified from the study because they had random bleeding. That's a lot of women, right?
Yeah.
And the research is showing, sure, it's most common in the first few years once you start progesterone every single day, but there's still about 30% who will have it 5, 6 years into their regimen. This
Mhm.
is problematic because no woman likes to unexpectedly bleed, right? If
Right.
Maria's on her vacation in Mexico and randomly starts bleeding, that's kind of a buzzkill for the trip.
Yeah.
So that's that. But then B, what is the normal physician response to unexpected bleeding? It's a DNC, it's a biopsy, it's an ultrasound. It's, really kind of like anxiety driving imaging and scary possibilities and everything else.
Yeah.
And so we always go back to, well, what were you expecting? You're actually not doing what the body did in the past. So now you're getting unexpected results, right?
Yeah.
So this goes
Yeah.
back to that physiologic restoration is to not just mimic the levels and whatnot, but it's to mimic actually when these hormones appeared over the course of the month.
Exactly. You're not
So,
playing God. You're trying to mimic what he naturally does for our bodies as a
yeah,
rhythm. And you're going to have a uterine bleed if you are doing the physiologic restoration and you
Right.
want to have that because you're going to be building that endometrial lining and shedding that. I kind of see it as a way to keep your uterus young and healthy. You know?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, too many women, I think, of your generation, it's the birth control pill, it's IUDs, it's implants. And they don't realize that when they're constantly shutting down that uterine activity every month, it's actually pretty unhealthy. We don't want to
Yeah.
age that way, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
exactly. And the only way you won't get a bleed is if you've had a hysterectomy, right? So
Or an
if you have
ablation.
uterus or
Yeah.
ablation, right?
Or you just have such a low estrogen level, you're barely building up the lining of the uterus.
Right. Does
Yeah.
that happen even with the physiologic restoration if you get it to that target level, or do those women ultimately end up having a bleed?
Physiologic restoration is not just the rhythms, it's also the volume, right? So
Right.
you're getting sufficient amounts of estrogen. If you were someone who was trying to mimic a cycle but using like a patch and prometrium, the odds of you getting a robust amount of estrogen to create a monthly bleed are lower, right?
Hmm.
Because you're just not getting enough stimulation to the endometrium. But true PR, physiological restoration, which is trademarked by the Women's Hormone Network, true PR will get you the amplitude, the volume, the peak, and the rhythm. And those are what are going to trigger that buildup of the endometrium and then the shed.
Yeah. And then for the ladies who are like, well, hell no, I'm not going to have a period again because my periods used to be a nightmare. What would you say to those ladies?
They're not supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
So if there is, then your practitioner adjusts hormones to, make sure that you don't have a bad period. It is
Right.
possible though, if you've got adenomyosis or endometriosis or fibroids, that could become problematic.
Hmm.
So
But that's not the HRT. That's your uterus.
Right.
We try and like distinguish between it's not the design of your HRT regimen. It's unfortunately kind of an anomaly in your body.
Hmm.
But one of our physician mentors likes to say, choose your menstrual cycle or choose a walker. Because if you're not getting, right, a regular bleed, meaning you're A, getting enough estrogen and B, withdrawing progesterone, you're missing those genomic signals again. And one of the ones that you're missing is going to be your bone health. And that's a huge
Yeah.
issue for a lot of women.
Yeah, right. So some ladies, have that view, and a lot of doctors do, that you start it, when you really need it, and they kind of wait a while and then do the lowest dose. So obviously the dose part we've talked about, you want to get to a dose that is mimics more of what our cycles looked like back when we were having regular cycles, more kind of childbearing years. But what about when to start things?
yeah, I'm a firm believer in, gosh, do I wish I started a few years before I thought I needed it. So for me, that was like, I wish I would have started at about 45. I think life would have been very different. I would have been happier, family would have been happier. Instead, I, probably started at about 47 or so. So
Okay.
um, just had a woman reach out today. She's like, I'm turning 40, but I have Hashis and half a thyroid, and I can tell I'm like got pretty severe perimenopausal symptoms. And I'm thinking to myself, almost everyone would tell her, oh, you're way too young. But honestly, if you've got symptoms and like she was smart, she's like, I have a feeling because I have Hashimoto's, I'm probably going to be in menopause earlier than
Mm,
had I had a fully functioning thyroid. And yeah, I have no problems with starting it early. We have a team member, Kristin, she started at 41 or 42.
One. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. The thing I have a problem with is wait until what?
Yeah.
right.
Right?
Right.
Wait
Waiting
until your
for it.
period's gone, because half the time a conventional physician is going to say, okay, so your period's gone. If you don't have symptoms, right, then they say, well, you don't need it yet. And
Right.
here's the problem. Perimenopause, the changes are happening. There is not a single woman
Yeah.
listening to this who's
Yeah.
sailing through peri who can look us dead in the face and ensure that she is not having any physiological changes. She just doesn't,
Right.
she's not aware of them yet, right?
Mhm.
So it's your vascular endothelium is changing, right? Your hippocampus volume is changing. Your
In perimenopause,
in
not
peri,
menopause.
right? And so it's this quiet change. So symptoms or no symptoms, there's no waiting that is justified, right?
Yeah.
It's the moment you know that your hormones are at suboptimal levels, whether you feel it or not, is when Maria and I would say start replacing. It
Yeah.
might include cycle changes. It might not. I had a stink in my Rena for 18 years. I didn't have a cycle, right? So I can't use my cycle to benchmark off it. And there's too many women out there who are thinking, well, A, they're not connecting what symptoms they might have to hormone changes, or B, they're so metabolically sound and manifesting this lovely life that they don't feel anything, they're not aware of anything. And like Maria said, they're usually the ones that come about 55, 60 are like, holy crap, how did I just get diagnosed with osteoporosis? That's not possible. It's like, yeah,
That's right.
it is. Because for the last 15 years, you eschewed hormones because you thought that you were better than, the rest of the women who are having symptoms. That's just not a thing. So there's no magical finish line that you cross that makes you eligible, right?
Yeah.
It's you're,
Also, you lose benefit when you start
yeah,
later. You lose benefit. You will get some benefit going forward, but like I'll just tell you, like, not that skin is the most important thing, but you could just add in vessels of your heart, your lining of your heart vessels. But I had a woman, she was like 65, and she's like, oh, I was like early menopause, 42. And she's like, I'm 65 and my skin is really bad. And I want to know if HRT can help my skin. And I didn't have the heart to tell her, but the answer is probably no. Like, it'll
Mhm.
maybe prevent it from getting worse, but like,
right.
you're
Yeah.
not gaining back 42 to 65. So think about that with other parts of your body as well. Like,
Yeah.
you lost benefit.
Yeah.
So
You can stop progression because we don't want to disqualify the 65 plus ladies, right? Like Maria and I are kind of, there's no age that's too late to start. You might just have to approach it differently.
Right.
Those women might, depending on how late they are to the game, be able to stop progression of disease process. The earlier you start, however, you can reverse things, right? So these osteopenia at 51, you can actually reverse that back to a good bone density.
Mhm.
That matters, right? Because now you have locked in a good health span. And that should be what we're all worried about. I mean, we love the aesthetic piece of it, but ultimately, I want to be protected from being frail and dependent and losing my autonomy.
Right, exactly. It's not about living to 100 and just struggling all the way there. It's like,
right.
okay,
Right.
how rich are these years of your life and how do you
Yeah.
feel? Do you find for women who start later, like maybe in their 60s or 70s, like how is that transition for them going on hormones? Is it a big change? Or they feel like they're going through puberty again? I mean, what do you tend to see with these ladies? Or is it
It
like, wow,
varies.
this is
I
great?
think the clients we've had that started in the later years have done really well.
Mhm.
They're so happy. They're,
Right.
I think that's the other thing is a lot of ladies listening now, when you're not fully aware of the changes, you actually don't realize how good you could feel, right?
Yeah.
Many of us are happy to feel good enough.
Yeah.
That
Right.
is not something Maria and I kind of want to age with. Like I want to feel my best, and I don't
Right.
know what that is. There's a lot of potential there. So,
Yeah.
um, they usually may have a little bit longer time to get the levels that they are hoping to get simply because we have receptors. And once we stop stimulating those receptors, they sort of close up. So they're going to
Mhm.
take a little bit longer to stimulate, revitalize and get them functioning again. But you
Mhm.
can do that at any age.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. One of my favorite transformations I see with women who, start this is just the way that they relate to themselves, their identity changes, especially if they've maybe gone for a while after their period stopping and they just feel like they're not sexy anymore. They kind of
Mhm.
feel like that wave has passed for them. And then they
Yeah.
get their hormones bounce and like, hey, what's up? Like I still got it. I feel sexy. I feel juicy. I feel good in my own skin,
Yeah.
and that's just a really beautiful thing to see. It kind of opens life up again for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Maria and I love to travel. I think that will be, it's either losing my brain or losing my ability to travel. Those two
Yeah.
things are my biggest fear in life. And we've got clients who are traveling for the first time in years because they hadn't had the vitality to do it. Right. And now
Yeah.
they're like, my husband and I went on a trip to Europe and they can't even believe that they're able to do these things because they'd pretty much given up on them. And I
Yeah.
think, sadly, the messaging from society is like, oh, well, you're barren now. So it's, whatever. Marie and I
Yeah.
kind of push back on that a little bit. I don't think that's quite the message from society unless you really want to look for the problem. But
Yeah.
that piece is usually, like you said, it's the like, I got my life back. They did not realize they could have vitality again.
Yes, exactly.
So,
I know we're all on the same page about just the frustration when doctors put patients on just testosterone or
Oh,
testosterone pellets. Can we talk about testosterone pellets?
yeah.
mm,
Well, first of all, again, physiologic means trying to replicate nature in the body, and that just makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Pellets are not physiologic. You get this massive, like, bolus of testosterone. And then it does wind down, but it's just way too big in the beginning to begin with.
Yeah.
And what I always say to women, I spoke to a woman today and she was like, I heard from my friend that like pellets are the thing to get. And I said, go ask that friend how long she's been on, how many insertions. I guarantee you it's like 2 or 3. She's sub 5 years. It's like women, once you go on HRT, you can change, right? You can change your route of administration, but you do need something that is going to last forever because hormones are for life and there's no shame or there's nothing wrong with that. They should be. You lose the benefit when you stop. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Kind of the same with supplements or your multivitamin. You can
Yeah.
multi you can cycle on and off, but like with hormones, you want to retain the benefits, so you want to stay on. So, is a 45-year-old, 50-year-old who goes on pellets going to still be experiencing benefits at 80, 85? Highly doubtful. We've just spoken to so many women. So,
Yeah.
we never put down someone's lived experience. We only just say, how long has that lived experience be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, the thing I joke, and I don't mean to be crude, but you've probably followed us enough to know that I tend to be blunt. So I like to say going on pellets, or even now the new shiny object is injectable testosterone for women, right? So even the online telehealth platforms, that's kind of their new thing. And these
Mhm.
women are like, I feel amazing, and I'm, chasing around my husband or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, a big dose of cocaine makes you feel great too. Like,
Right.
that's the equivalent. It's just your jet fuel is going to make you be like, wah, until it doesn't. And
Yeah.
Yes.
the problem is we aren't small men. We do not have as our primary, there's this whole conversation that testosterone by volume is the largest sex hormone in the female body. Okay,
Blah, blah, blah.
here's the fun part about that, ladies. Testosterone turns into estrogen. We need robust amounts of testosterone because they're constantly aromatizing into our estrogen. When we take exogenous hormones, the ones we didn't make, they don't turn into estrogen, right? So just because you could measure volumes of testosterone and by normalizing the units of measurement between the two hormones, it looks like testosterone's higher. It's always in a conversion cycle. The amount that just stays testosterone is much lower than most people are willing to admit. So when we take hormones, we don't get that same sort of conversion benefit, right? And so
Mhm.
what Maria and I are seeing now is these women with testosterone levels more than our husbands,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
Both total and free. Their voice box has lowered. They're unaware of it. And guess what? That's not reversible. They may have had a clitoris develop into a small penis. Now they need surgery. But even if they haven't had those things, they have estrogen levels of a postmenopausal woman. And then they get diagnosed with osteoporosis, or they
Right.
find out that they need a statin because their heart and their cholesterol is so out of whack. And we're
Mhm.
like, so how'd that testosterone work out now? Right?
Exactly.
So
Yep.
that's the
Yeah.
thing we want women to understand is like the theories behind giving women testosterone are so incredibly flawed, and
Mhm.
they're kind of being dismissed, forgiven their flaws because they're making women feel good.
Yes, exactly. And
You
doctors
know,
like that little ego boost. Like my patients are happy, and then if they don't feel good, they can, eventually go somewhere else. But
yeah,
and it's a big money maker for a lot of these doctors who do the pellets in their office. It's just,
yeah,
and I think if their patient eventually has to have surgery to fix their clitoris, they should pay for it because
totally agree.
they're not
And
telling these patients, by the way, your clitoris might grow and it's irreversible. So, I
right.
mean,
And
they
your
probably
voice
would think,
box, if it drops, you won't know until it already dropped. And now we
right.
can't fix that, right? And the thing is, you're seeing it's not just that, right? You're seeing jaw changes, you're seeing bone changes on people. And I'm not going to out anyone, but there is a very well-known influencer in the kind of holistic health space who is unapologetic for her use of TRT, growth hormones, and even GLP-1s microdosing. And if you look at pictures of her 3 years ago and you look at the pictures of her now, she has masculinized her appearance.
Wow.
That really what we want? Is that what we're going for? I mean, it's kind of ironic because you've got this sort of feminist arm of the discussion screaming, we're not small men. And yet
Right.
we're pursuing interventions that are turning us into small men,
It's
right?
interesting.
So,
Yeah.
So
And it's
many of these women
fragile.
with high testosterone have such really like postmenopausal levels of estradiol.
Mhm.
So, they're
Right.
just like this whole that drives me crazy, this whole trope about testosterone. It's the the most what is it,
High
voluminous
volume.
hormone.
Yeah.
You've got so much testosterone. That does not equate its importance. Your
Yeah.
primary female hormone is estradiol.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
testosterone was all that when people want to transition, they wouldn't need estrogen, right? You could just give them testosterone, but that's not the case.
Right.
We need estrogen as women.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
exactly. Are there any other myths that drive you guys crazy? Any other ones that you think are really important to touch on? I mean, I could talk to you all day, but
Well,
time
just
flew.
because a doctor can prescribe you HRT does not an HRT specialist make. That would
Yeah,
be a big one for us, right? And
Right.
and your OBGYN may have delivered your babies and you may have this like deep connection to her or him because of that.
yep,
Also doesn't make them your menopause doctor. Like it's just not. And hanging a shingle out your door that says you're NAMS certified, North American Menopause Society certified, also doesn't make you a specialist. What people need to realize is that these regulatory agencies and medical societies, they teach one way of doing things. And as we said earlier, there's a really broad spectrum of how to do things for women's health. So you
right,
need to be careful that you aren't walking into a situation in which you are being sold a bill of goods simply because that's the only depth that that physician has. And
right.
that, that's again why we wrote the book. It's like, ladies, you need to figure out what you want. You need to figure out what your goals are, and you need to figure out what are the things that can accomplish the goals that you have. Then you go find a provider. You don't go find a provider and expect them to solve your problems. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And even if it's a functional medicine or naturopathic doctor, it doesn't mean they have real specialized training in hormones. And
Yeah.
we had a okay training in hormones in school, but I did a lot of extra training and even like PR, that was more that I had to study. So
Yeah.
just because a doctor speaks to certain pain points that you have, it doesn't mean they have the right solution for you. So you
Correct.
want to do your own research. Definitely read this book, everyone listening, The Great Menopause Myth. The last thing I want to ask is you mentioned that hormone replacement therapy isn't the only thing, through
No.
this period of life. So is there maybe like one or two habits that you want women listening to maybe start implementing right away? That's like a must do.
To me, this is a period in life where, I mean, Kristen and I both love food, and we're not like food obsessive. We allow ourselves to pretty much eat almost anything we want. But I would say, generally speaking, like this is a time in life where there's not a lot of room in my life for not nourishing myself well. Like
Yeah.
it is the biggest lever. You think 3 meals a day, day after day, that can really, really impact whether you feel energetic or whether you feel fatigued. So
Yeah.
it is really a time in life to be very intentional with what you eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well nourished.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Eat enough because too many women aren't eating enough. Stop eating your plant proteins. We're going to say it. When Maria says she eats 3 meals a day, it's animal protein centric.
Yes.
Um, but then stress is a huge piece. And I know it's kind of this double-edged sword, right? Because we started this by saying this is a stressful time of life, just for the seasons of, maybe parenting, career, partners, parents, etc. Like we have a lot of demands on us as women. So it's easy to say, deal with your stress. But I think what Maria and I are really starting to realize is that women need to start recognizing that their nervous system is an entire organ that needs to be supported. You can't just get rid of your stress. You can't just get rid of having a young child in the house and being pregnant at 44 and everything else. Like that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is support your body's nervous system so that you can manage that stress. Because whether you're making your hormones in peri or you're taking them in postmenopause or, whichever, the best HRT and hormone production in the world will be overridden by unmitigated stress. And I don't know if it's an artifact of the last 5 years that we've all been through or what it is, but stress seems to be an area that people are starting to sort of overlook as their biggest issue. And they're focusing on the hormones. We were laughing this weekend at our retreat. We had a provider with us, and she said, when women aren't willing to look at that, they're not sleeping, they're not eating, and they're stressed out all the time, and they're on HRT and things aren't going well, they blame their HRT, right? She said there was someone who came in, she had trigeminal nerve neuralgia. Okay. That is not caused by HRT. And the
Right.
patient came to her and said, it's my HRT. And we laughed and we said, we've had someone who sprained their ankle and said, you think it was my HRT? We're like, ladies, you are in control of like 90% of these health things. You're in control. The hormones are a small piece,
Oh
they're
my gosh.
magic, but they're not everything.
That's so funny. I got a speeding ticket. It's my HRT. I got
Totally.
Germany. It's my
I wasn't paying
HRT.
attention. It's my hormones. Yeah.
And also one of the reasons I send my patients to your Instagram is because you guys really focus on strength training. And that's something that is not a common habit for women in this stage of life. It's just not.
Yeah.
There's a focus on cardio, maybe some yoga, walking, that kind of thing. But we lose muscle at a pretty fast rate, during this time. So really building and maintaining muscle is so huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I was a cardio junkie. I was a sprinting and distance rower during my 30s and 40s. There's nothing like a runner's high, right? Like it's
Right.
addictive. Totally get that. I'm not going to take that away from ladies. But the reality is it's incredibly catabolic to be pushing ourselves constantly to the point where we get that runner's high. So therefore, we need to really look at what are the interventions that are going to help us age well again. And, it may not be as robust, but there's still an emotional benefit from strength training, right? You're still
Yeah.
going to get that kind of well-being out of it. So absolutely women need to do that. And Maria and I just had this last week. Someone said, but what's heavy? I don't know what you mean when you say strength train and lift heavy. Well, there's kind of another group of I won't name who, but people who get like 2 to 3 pound dumbbells and they do these little Jane Fonda-like movements and they think it's strength training because they have a weight in their hand. It does need to be more than that. And I would say, look at it from a functional standpoint. I have 2 75-pound dogs. They eat a ton of food. When I go to the vet, I'm carrying out 80 pounds of dog food every single time, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm training for, right? It's
Exactly.
not 2 pound weights where I'm doing these little endurance muscle things so that I look sculpted in my wedding dress at my son's wedding in May. I mean, that would be nice too. But the reality is, if my dog has a health emergency and my husband's at work and I need to throw him into the back of the truck, I need to be able to lean down, pick up 75 unstable pounds and do it without injuring myself. That's what
Yeah.
we want women to start focusing on. They need to start thinking about their independence as they age and then design their workout programs accordingly.
Oh my gosh, I love that. It's so beautiful. Wow. Well, this has been super fun diving into all of this. Any parting words you ladies want to throw out there?
We would love it if people read our book.
Read the
Got it
book and
right
leave us a
here.
review, get us feedback. There you
Great Menopause Myth. I am obsessed. I think I wrote a
Thank
review. If not,
you.
I'm going to, but you could tell you put so much time and effort into this. And it's great for doctors. It's great for,
Thank you.
doctors.
We
So
did want to kind of get it in the bookstores of naturopathic schools as well.
yeah.
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 Ooh, I hope so.
Yeah. Our
Yeah.
thing is, there's a Goliath out there. We won't name it, but there's a whole machine that's developed around menopause in the social media
Yeah, for
space.
sure.
And
Yeah.
Maria and I, we don't have MD or ND or DO after our names. So immediately we're kind of reduced in,
Yeah.
credentials there. But we also don't have PR machines and all these other things. I mean, at the end of the day, we are two moms who are passionate about what we do. We started helping women. It grew. We continue to help women and we just want to give them agency. We aren't talking points for towing the narrative of conventional medicine. And that's the big books out there. Ultimately, that's what they're doing. And it's not to disparage them. I think it's just, again, a doctor's information is going to be as deep as their toolbox. And unfortunately, many doctors do not have very deep toolboxes, either by choice or by design because of the system they work in.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, love it. I love it. I can't wait to do more of your guys' trainings and also to go to your retreat. As soon as my
Yeah.
baby pops out, I'm gonna be like, all right, sign me up.
Miami.
Miami
Yes.
next March.
2026.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds amazing. Well,
Yeah.
pencil me in for that. I really want to. I'm sure it'll be perfect timing for me. So,
Yeah.
well, I just adore you both. Thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for all the work you're doing and just
Thank you
having
for
so much
having us.
courage. Yeah, and just the courage to go against the system. And it's just really needed. So, really appreciate your time and hope to have you on soon. We'll talk
We'd
about
love
more
to do it again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay.